here we are. Time for our vlog on Matthew 22 verses 1 to 14. Invitations to a wedding banquet which people refuse.
So it's an interesting passage because Luke has the same story, but it's not quite the same. And there are some quite significant differences. And also, when you read the passage, and I notice some people make quite a lot of this, it's a sort of series of implausibilities. So, in the middle of it, you've got the king destroying a city because the people didn't turn up. And you think, well, hold on,
Seems an overreaction.
An overreaction. And why is there another city involved already? So, rather than his own city. And so you've got just a series of curious sort of narrative twists and abrupt turns and so forth that are a number of which are peculiar to Matthew's version. And I notice one of the folk that I was reading, it tries to, and of course, we will all have different views about how legitimate this is to do that, but tries to go back to what he thinks Jesus's parable might actually have been, which is something along the lines of someone, maybe or maybe not the king, calling a banquet, sending people who are invited, having all sorts of feeble excuses for not coming, and then sending out maybe twice slaves to go and encourage them to come, and then in the end going out into the highways and byways and bringing in the folk who he perhaps wouldn't previously have thought of inviting. And you can see in that I think a parallel or a correlation with Jesus basically saying, you scribes and Pharisees, you've been invited over and over again, and you've been distracted by those things that of your own concern rather than the fruits of the kingdom. So it is to the publicans and sinners that I am turning, and they will be the ones who will be invited. So you can see that sort of parallel in this, and then of course you've got this interesting, again jarring addition of, and we assume it is an addition of the man who's challenged. One of them, now you'd think presumably everybody coming from the highways and byways, the poor and those that were eventually encouraged to come in, you'd assume that every one of them would not be coming in with a wedding garment. One of them gets picked on utterly unreasonably. So you have to suspend all of that and think, so what in this story is that wedding garment about? And I think, because I think there's a thread through Matthew of the phrase I've just used, of the fruits of the kingdom. And we talked last week about those fruits being particular sorts of works, that activities, actions within the life of the community and to those outside. And of course, Matthew 25 is the one of the classic examples of that, and therefore is this saying, yes, everyone is invited into this banquet, and your response is to bear the fruits of the kingdom and to live in such a way that you bear the fruits of the kingdom. And I think you can then sort of see how, because essentially what Matthew has done has morphed, we assume, a tale which he'd heard, whoever Matthew was, tale that he'd heard into a story that resonated with his congregation, that made sense to this Christian community, and recognizing that just belonging isn't all that it's about. Belonging and living in a way that bears fruit is what it's about. Does that make sense? I mean, that's how I've kind of tried to work with this, because it's a challenging passage.
It is. Well.
So what are you going to say?
What am I going to say now? Well, I suppose let's
got
hoover up a couple of crumbs around the edge of your fine banquet that you've provided. So it starts off, the kingdom of heaven is like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So like a human king. So we already know that there's something here that's this is about a cosmic kind of setting. So immediately I think when he talks about a wedding banquet, that could be an allusion to what's going to wrap everything up, Revelation 19, the wedding banquet, which is often alluded to in scripture as kind of like something that is going to happen. Or, the big feast. Again, there's another allusion there. So I think you've got what you might call a kind of end times element to this already in terms of the way it's framed. But culturally, it's really interesting because, of course, wedding feasts in those days, you had to know how many people were coming. So the invite was twice, wasn't it? The first invite was, you are going to come on the 13th, aren't you? Because otherwise I won't defrost the sausages, yeah? Knowing you're coming, I'm going to defrost the sausages. So presumably a lot of these people have said they're going to come. So, but the first invitation is, are you going to come? The second invitation is, come now, because I've actually defrosted the sausages. I've slaughtered this and that. And therefore, it's pretty insulting to come up with the excuse that I've got work to do. I mean, it's more insulting the excuses they have in Luke's version of it. But it's still pretty insulting.
Particularly since you've been given advance warning that this was happening, and you said you would come.
Yeah, quite. So you can see how he gets mad, the king. Having said which, he has been generous because he's asked them twice. He's not just invited once; he's invited twice. And that's the point at which this huge blow-up, as you say, which just seems fantastical, really, that he actually destroys this city of his distant relatives or whoever it is. And then this bizarre bit, well, not the bizarre bit, before it gets to that, he then says, go out and invite people, the good and the bad. So it's not just the good. So in other words, there's something unconditioned about the invitation to the kingdom that people are receiving here. It's not unconditional, but I think it's unconditioned by our moral quality at that stage. And as you say, it might well be he's having a pop at those who had previously been invited but haven't actually taken the invite up. And then, I mean, the interesting thing culturally about the wedding garment, according to Kenneth Bailey, is, people it wouldn't be like today where you put your tuxedo on or your ball gown on to go to a wedding. These were days when they didn't have those sorts of things, but you would have had a linen kind of cloth available which you would be expected to wash and put on to come along to it. So this particular guest has been invited and has come along, but clearly has come along without the linen cloth that would be expected and which everybody else would be wearing, or at least that's the way Bailey looks at it. And then when he's inquired of by the king, who is still being graceful, friend, you don't appear to have the garment on, and he's just silent. He's just stum. He doesn't enter into any participation of dialogue or conversation or indeed relationship with the host. And as you say, is that the clothing of righteousness that comes with acceptance to the invitation to the feast? Because although we are invited in an unconditioned way, it is conditional in the sense that we are expected to become citizens of the kingdom. And to become citizens of the kingdom is to bear the fruit of the kingdom. So, people like Luther and Calvin would talk about, putting on the kind of the clothes of righteousness here.
Yeah, and I think the other point about the good and the bad is that if you go back to what I was saying about the way in which Matthew's crafted this for his congregation, it's to enable his own congregation to recognise that they're a whole mixture of people, just like any congregation. It's not just the saintly. It's and Jesus said, "I didn't come to save the righteous, but the sinners." So that recognising that we're always a community. Well, we're a community of the good and the bad, made up of people who are, as individuals, a mixture of the good and the bad. And I think that there's something quite important there about this process of the redemption that's enabled by our participation in the life of that community. And that's where you begin to put on the cloak of righteousness.
Yeah. And so there's something that he's sticking out precisely by not being a part of that community.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, what's the God that is being illustrated here? A God who is calling us to celebration, a God who is inviting us to rejoice with him.
He wants us to have some fun.
Yeah.